Since I was a little girl, I've always loved writing letters. Not emails or text messages, real letters with paper, ink, and envelopes. I think I inherited that from my grandfather, who taught me to put feelings into words like someone planting seeds in a garden. When I was a child, he lived far away, and we exchanged letters every week. I'd tell him about school, my friends, my fears. He'd reply with old stories and bits of wisdom that now as an adult, I realized were priceless. Life went on, as it always does, and the letters stopped. High school, college, work, dating, everything seemed to push writing into the background. My grandfather got sick, and I promised to visit him the next weekend, but he passed away before I could. After the funeral, I went into his room and found a wooden box with my name on it. Inside were all the letters I'd ever sent him and several more that he had written but never mailed. I read them one by one, feeling like he was still there, talking to me through the pages. That day, I decided I wanted to live through words somehow. I went into journalism, believing that telling stories was the most beautiful way to keep the world awake. At first, everything was exciting. Interviews, travels, deadlines, cold coffee, and too many ideas at once. But with time, I saw the darker side of journalism. The rush, the pressure, the lack of time to actually feel what you wrote. And that began to eat at me from the inside. One day, while covering a tough story, I visited an orphanage to interview a caregiver. There, I noticed a little girl, maybe 8 years old, sitting in a corner writing on a crumpled piece of paper. Curious, I asked what it was. She said, "It's a letter to my mom. I write them, but I don't know where to send them." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. It was like seeing my own childhood reflected back at me, sad and beautiful all at once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about my grandfather, the letters, and all the words that never reached their destination. The next morning, I quit my job. Everyone thought I was insane. "You're leaving a steady job for what?" they asked. But I knew exactly why. I wanted to help people communicate when pain made them go silent. I started a project called Letters That Heal, where people could write anonymous letters sharing their stories, and others could respond. It began small, just online, but soon it grew into a movement. Schools, hospitals, even prisons joined in. Letters were exchanged between strangers, and somehow everyone came out lighter. It was as if writing gave humanity back to those who had lost it. One day, I received a letter with no return address. It simply said, "If it weren't for this project, I would have given up. Thank you for reminding me that empathy still exists." I cried alone that night, certain my grandfather would be proud. And maybe he was. I could almost hear his voice saying, "Words, my dear, are bridges. Never burn them." That day, I realized love doesn't disappear when people do. It just changes form and turns into kindness. Today, the project has volunteers everywhere, and I still write letters, to strangers, to myself, and sometimes to him. I keep them all in a new wooden box, just like the one I found years ago. When sadness visits, I open one and reread old lines, remembering that life is made of arrivals, departures, and returns written on paper. A few weeks ago, I went back to the orphanage where it all began. The little girl who used to write unsent letters is now a teenager and told me she wants to be a writer. "I want people to feel what I felt when you answered my letter," she said. I smiled, holding back tears, realizing that the circle was repeating itself, but this time, beautifully. Sometimes I think the world would be a kinder place if people wrote more and shouted less. Because writing is like talking to time, leaving pieces of your soul for someone to find later. That's what I've learned. Even when silence hurts, the right words can heal. And as long as there's paper, ink, and someone willing to listen, no story is ever truly alone. Maybe the secret is simple: to keep writing, even when no one replies, because somehow, words always find their way to where they're meant to go.